Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to my latest video for you guys. And what I decided to do is a topic that I did last summer for everybody, which is going to be players to target late in fantasy football drafts. So I'm going to be starting today with the quarterback position. Now, to qualify for this list, they have to be outside the current ADP of top 12 quarterbacks per Fantasy Pros. This was as of last night. So just in case you're watching this later in the month or maybe in August, this is as of July 12th. As we all know, ADPs are going to flip upside down by the time we get into the training camp, we get into preseason, we see what's happening with players, we're seeing reports, and then of course injuries happen, which completely changed ADP by the time we get to the drafts in August. So these quarterbacks, these five quarterbacks I am about to talk about, these are basically, they're going in as quarterback twos in 12-team leagues. So they have to, like I mentioned, they have to be outside the top 12 of the current ADP to qualify for this list. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive right into my top five quarterbacks to target late in your fantasy football drafts. My first quarterback I'm going to talk about, Tua Tagovailoa, the Dolphins quarterback. Since 2021, so if anybody hasn't been following me for some time, I like to look into people who have been, or players that have been productive from the last three seasons. And Tua has actually found himself in the top 10 in multiple different categories. Since 2021, he has the most RPO passing yards. He has the second most play action yards. He has the third highest yards per attempt, minimum of 17 starts. He's tied for the third best completion percentage with a minimum of 17 starts. He has the fifth best passer rating, the fifth best on pass percentage, the eighth most completed air yards, and the 10th most passing touchdowns. Now, outside of his production, why I do like him is he does have a potential explosive offense down there in Miami. He's got obviously Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They signed Odell Beckham Jr. this offseason. I know OBJ is not the same player that he was in the past, but still he does give that element in the offense, and he doesn't have to be the number one guy, let alone the number two guy with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. They signed Jonnu Smith this offseason, and then what I like about Miami is they do also have the running back screen game with Raheem Mostert, Devin Achane, and they also drafted Jalen Wright out of Tennessee, who has the potential to be a very effective pass catcher out of the backfield for the Dolphins. And then one other factor too is sometimes I do like to bet on players that are entering a contract year. Now, there's plenty of time between now and the regular season where Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins could come to an agreement on a contract extension. But let's just say he does enter the season without that extension. That gives him even more of a purpose to have a career year. So when he does reach next offseason, he can get that big type of quarterback contract that he's going to be seeking. So that's why I definitely like Tua later in the drafts if you decide that you want to wait on the quarterback position. Moving into my next quarterback, I'm definitely going to go with the number one pick in this past NFL draft, Caleb Williams. Looking at what he did in his two seasons at USC, he threw for 8,170 yards, 72 passing touchdowns. He did throw 10 interceptions, but as I always say, interceptions and fumbles, unless you're in a league that really punished for that, they really don't matter. But I did want to bring that up. I mean, five interceptions in average per season. It's not that bad. And then now Caleb, he does have the mobility to run, but he doesn't like take off running that often. He only had 524 rushing yards over the last 2 years, but what I really like is he does have a knack for finding the end zone when he gets the offense down into the red zone. He had 21 rushing touchdowns over the past two seasons. So you're looking at 93 total touchdowns between two seasons. So he was he was highly productive. There's a reason why he was the number one pick. There's a reason why he won the Heisman Trophy a couple years ago. And then what I like too is for a number one pick, he's entering a very favorable situation on the offense. He's got three receivers where he's got proven veterans in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. And then they drafted Rome Odunze, so they're going to have those three wide receiver sets. They got Cole Kmet at the tight end position. They even signed Gerald Everett at tight end as well, who's a quality receiving tight end, even though he's getting up there in age. And then you liked what they can do with the screen game between DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert. hurt. So I think he's entering a great situation. And let's just say, like I always say this about rookie quarterbacks every year, if you're going to draft him, maybe you don't want to count on him too early. You could always pair him with one of these two veteran quarterbacks I'm about to talk about, and then once Caleb is settled in, and then you slide him in. But to be honest with you, with the weapons that he does have in that offense, I actually would be comfortable starting Caleb week 1 if I decided to wait on the quarterback position, address the running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, and then just get my quarterback in the later rounds and see if you can get some type of value out of him. Moving into the next quarterback, this is one of those veteran quarterbacks maybe that you would want to pair with Caleb, somebody that can get you by in the first few weeks, and then you switch over to Caleb once he's settled in that offense. But I am going to go with that new addition to the Atlanta Falcons offense in Kirk Cousins. Yeah, obviously Kirk is coming off a torn Achilles, but he has been practicing during OTAs. And then when you look at his production since 2021, which is notable because obviously he missed I think half of last year when he tore his Achilles. Since 2021, the big stat on him, he is one of 4 quarterbacks that have 11 plus passing yards, 80 plus passing touchdowns, and less than 35 interceptions in the regular season. Other notable stats since 2021, he has the 5th highest passing yards per game. He has the 6th most passing touchdowns, the 6th most completed air yards, the 7th most play action yards, the 7th best passer rating, a minimum of 17 starts, the 8th best on-pass percentage, a minimum of 17 starts, and the 9th most passing yards. And then what I like too is he's going to be entering a good situation where he's got Drake London, Kyle Pitts. These guys I wouldn't say are as proven, but I think these guys are serviceable. They do have Darnell Mooney and Rondale Moore for the passing attack. And then obviously he's got the running back screen game where he can dump off the Bijan Robinson and get those easy yards and a potential touchdown as well. And then you got to keep in mind with Raheem Morris coming over from the Los Angeles Rams, they're going to be adapting that Rams type of offense, which is, they're going to try to run the ball and they're going to try to feed off the play action. And like I mentioned, he was very successful. Kirk is one of the better quarterbacks in the league off of play action. So I see Kirk coming in there and hitting the ground running, and I can see him bringing the best out of a Drake London, like I did talk about in my year 3 wide receiver video that came out this week. If you haven't checked it out, go to my YouTube channel and go check out the full video. And then also, I think we're going to see the best season from Kyle Pitts, and then we're going to finally see that tight end that they drafted him to be. So that's why I do like Kirk Cousins in the later rounds. And then if you don't want to, like I mentioned though, if you're kind of leery about him coming off an Achilles injury, maybe you get a Kirk Cousins with a Caleb Williams, or maybe this next rookie quarterback I'm going to be talking about. Speaking of that, let's just go ahead and move into the next quarterback I'm keeping my eyes on in the later rounds. It's going to be the Commanders' rookie quarterback, Jayden Daniels. Mainly because I think he's going to have a high floor as a player because of his rushing ability. Now, looking at what he did over the last 2 seasons at LSU, he threw for 6,725 yards, 57 passing touchdowns, and he threw for 7 interceptions. And then, like I mentioned, it's his rushing ability. He ran the ball for 2,019 yards, and he had 21 rushing touchdowns, so 78 total touchdowns over the last 2 years. Obviously, he won the Heisman this past year, and the reason why I also like him, he's got that Cliff Kingsbury offense that he's going to be playing in. They're going to be looking to push down the ball down the field. We saw Kyler Murray be a fantasy relevant quarterback underneath Cliff Kingsbury, so I can see that success happening for Jayden. And then as far as what he's working with, I like the idea that he's got Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. They drafted Luke McCaffrey, who is somebody I did like entering this past draft class. They do have Diami Brown, who I think has shown some decent things in his young career. They drafted Ben Sinnott at the tight end position, which is a rookie tight end to keep an eye on. They got Zach Ertz, but he's up there in age. I'm not going to say to count on him. But I think the biggest benefit for Jayden, which is going to help him out as a rookie quarterback, is he's going to have Austin Eckler in the offense, where he's going to be able to do those dump offs to Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is one of the most productive running backs through the air over the past 3 seasons. I mean, honestly, over the past 5 or 6 years. But when I did my research over the last 3 years in production, Austin Eckler is up there when you look at the receiving stats for running backs. So I like what he can bring. And then obviously, too, there's the factor in The Commanders are a potential Brandon Ayuk spot. So if they were to trade Brandon Ayuk and they don't have to get rid of a Terry McLaurin or a Jahan Dotson in the process of getting Ayuk, I like the idea of having McLaurin, Ayuk, and Jahan Dotson as his three main wide receivers. And with those type of receivers and with his rushing ability, that's why I see Jaden Daniels with a very high floor as a fantasy quarterback this year. My last quarterback I'm going to talk about is a veteran that I will never give up on. Obviously, he tore his Achilles at the beginning of last year, but I'm still willing to bet on Aaron Rodgers. For the New York Jets, obviously with him missing basically a complete season last year, he didn't really show up on my stat research since 2021, but he still had the third best passer rating, which with a minimum of 17 starts, and he also has the third best on-target pass percentage, which those two stats shouldn't be a surprise for Aaron Rodgers. We know that Aaron Rodgers, he's a spite type of player, a spite type of person. He's going to want to go out there and prove himself. I think as long as he can stay on the field, he's going to be highly productive. I think he's going to be a kind of a high floor. I don't know what his ceiling is as a fantasy quarterback, but if you told me he finished in the top 12 quarterbacks by the end of the year, I would not be surprised. Obviously, he has Garrett Wilson, who I expect a big year 3 from. They got Mike Williams. They drafted Malachi Corley, who can work that screen game, who can work the underneath routes and be a yak guy for the offense. They also got Xavier Gibson, the guy that showed some good things. Alan Lazard is still there. Obviously, he was not the receiver he was in Green Bay, but I just think Aaron Rodgers is that type of quarterback that brings the best out of wide receivers. And obviously, I think we would see a different Lazard than what we saw for the Jets this year. And then they got the tight ends, Tyler Conklin. We'll see if Jeremy Rucker can finally kind of have a breakout year. He's kind of been underneath the radar for them over the last 2 years. And then they also got the running back screen game, which I've been talking about with all these quarterbacks, with Breece Hall. Breece Hall can take a easy dump off and run for 60 yards for a touchdown, which is an easy production for Aaron Rodgers. Now, one thing I am going to bring up, I'm not sure if this is going to happen. I'm not really buying it, but earlier this week, or a few days ago, Aaron Rodgers, I think it's at the, I'm not a big golf guy, but the celebrity, I think, golf tournament out there in Lake Tahoe, he said that he was looking forward to playing with Davante Adams again, and which is like, okay. I mean, they've kind of hinted at that over the last year and a half. And then Kay Adams was interviewing Breece Hall, and he kind of made it sound like they're going to go out there and get Davante Adams. So again, this might not be a before season trade. Maybe because look at the Raiders quarterback situation, right? With Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Obviously Davante's at the back end of his career. He wants to go win a Super Bowl. And let's be honest, the Raiders aren't going to win a Super Bowl with Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew. So maybe he might push his way out of New York, but that might be into the season as well. But man, if at any point the Jets were to get Davante Adams and you got Aaron Rodgers with Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, Mike Williams, Malachi Corley, dude, all of a sudden, there is a very high ceiling for Aaron Rodgers as a fantasy quarterback, and he's going very late in fantasy drafts right now. And obviously, like I said, you might, just like with Cousins, you might kind of be like, I'm not sure about Rodgers coming off an Achilles. Maybe you get Rodgers and a Jaden Daniels, so you have somebody to go between until one of those guys emerges as a consistent fantasy option for you. So yeah, those are my top 5 quarterbacks. I am targeting outside the current top 12 quarterbacks of per ADP as of now. Obviously that could change. So you guys can expect a running back video like this, a wide receiver and a tight end video like this. I'll be doing those over the next week and a half, 2 weeks. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to all my channels. If you have any questions, get in the comments. As I always say, you can always hit me up in a DM. I'm gonna hop out of here. I hope you guys have a great weekend, week, night, day, depending on when you're watching this. I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.